And we're back with another episode of Gentleman's History Hour. I'm Rob J. 10X.
I'm Equality.
And we have a special guest here today, Randie, the amazing Randie.
Hi, guys.
And, basically a brilliant media personality with Houston Style magazine, and has some great information in regards to Tulsa and Black Wall Street. And that's one subject that we wanted to just explore on today's episode. Not necessarily a bullet point dot by dot of what happened, but maybe just an overview of some of the things that we found interesting, because it was what I knew about it, and then what came from us researching it really wound up being really two diametrically just different things. So
yeah, it's been a very popular topic. I think Russell Westbrook is doing a documentary.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's out yet, but we're coming up on the 100-year Centennial, so it'll probably be even more documentaries or more stories that'll come out about Black Wall Street. And guess, this is a free zone to chime in anytime you want to. This is real casual.
I like for you guys to do your thing.
Yeah,
because
but it's a casual
when I'm watching you
conversation.
guys, okay, great, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so
we just, we don't want to be too corporate on here.
That's cool.
It's just,
I'm like, I want to educate me too.
Yeah.
Like, I want that education.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me start with a question then. Like, what's something that you found interesting just in the research journey about it?
One thing I would say is how I approached it was because as a kid, I first found out about Black Wall Street. I think my mom brought something home, and I ended up writing a paper about it in school. And that was my first introduction to it. So I'd already knew about, okay, there was a lot of black people, and you know how we say black excellence?
Yeah.
We used that, we drove that to the black excellence grave.
Yeah.
But so I was questioning myself, like, what are some things that I didn't know when people normally talk about it? And a few things that stood out to me was I'm big on how do you get to a Greenwood? How does black people get there?
Right.
How does that land come about? So I was approaching it from the standpoint of how did all these black people end up at this space at one time? Like when we in the previous episode on the Harlem Renaissance, and we asked the question, so how did all these black people end up in Harlem?
Right.
So I approached this with that same question. How did all these black people end up in Tulsa, Oklahoma? So that was one thing that really stood out to me. What about you? With how you approach
I wanted you to go ahead and tell us how they got out here.
I was waiting on that too. I was like, okay, maybe you want to segue and then go into it, but I'm waiting on it.
That was the one thing, and then the second thing is approaching the characters.
Okay.
Who were the major people?
Players.
Yeah, the major players going into it. Who was the cast? Mm-hmm. So the one was the how, and then I guess after that was the who, which I never really. I've always heard it from Black Wall Street, I'm saying the romanticized way of there's a bunch of black people, they were elite, and they built, it was hospitals, they had, grocery stores and all of this stuff, and I'm like, man, that sounds good, but how?
Yeah. There is one movement though, you think about it, like most movements, you say Harlem Renaissance, there's names that come, okay, there was, Langston Hughes, there were these people, but not to your point, whenever we bring up Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Walls, it's not a movement that comes with some names where you could just it was this person,
you gotta research.
You gotta go and find it. Yeah.
So to real quick to answer your question, and this is just I guess kind of bullet point. The major date that stood out to me was 1889. Well, we like to throw out dates every now and then for the people that's watching it, so they can go and do
with dates, by the way.
Yeah, so I from doing this, I've become like a database of a bunch of dates.
Great. Yeah.
But 1887 in 1889, and then how all of this stuff, even the what was going on with the Emancipation Proclamation with Abraham Lincoln, and just tying in all those different puzzle pieces, and then understanding how that land was Native American land,
right?
In a bunch of different acts. So just to look through my notes, one of the first things that stood out was the Dawes Act, the DAWES Act of 1887, and they authorized the government to divide tribal territories into allotments for individual Native Americans, and that also included blacks. And then now we press up to, we go to March 1889, the Indian Appropriations Act. They were saying Indian, so no offense to Native Americans. This is just documented. Right. This is the act. President Grover Cleveland, he opened unassigned land to white settlers under the tenets of the Homestead Act. And the Homestead Act came about in 1862, and that was by Abraham Lincoln. That granted Americans 160 acre plots of public land, basically for the price of like a filing fee. And then this is where it got really interesting. They had this Oklahoma land rush of 1889.
That's when that oil came, right?
And yeah, it was, but no, that was the oil boom came a little later. Oh, they didn't really know.
That booming part came a little later.
That came when we got there, when we settled. But that land rush of 1889, it was how the story is told is kind of weird. It's like everybody lining up at high noon. At high noon, and they hit a pistol, and everybody just runs, and this is where you settle.
Boy, that kind of ties back also to one of MLK's last interviews when he was standing in the church and he said, talking about lifting by the bootstraps, and when he said, well, meanwhile, America gave out millions of acres of land. I love the way he says millions, but that's one of the acts.
But the tie-in to the Native American part and that land and how it was. Just those different acts, if people go and research like that Dawes Act or that Indian Appropriations Act, and then the Oklahoma Land Rush is really how it gets into the players.
Right, and I want to ask you if your research led you to, there was a guy, I can't think of his name, I want to say last name was Edmund, but if your research had that guy there, he was the one that before everyone was settled into Greenwood, before Greenwood came about, is somewhere right there in 1889 and like 1905, where he wanted to create a black state.
Yeah, he talked about that. Yeah.
Right, and so and he called the city was called Langston. I remember that totally in my head, but he wanted to create a black state, and although that never came about, Greenwood would have eventually happened. Yeah.
It wasn't. We say Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it was really Greenwood.
Right.
Now the character that
which is a town in Tulsa. Right?
Now the first character that came about for me was O.W. Gurley.
Okay.
And he's from Arkansas.
Okay.
And he was one of the first guys to get some settlement in that land, that what we call Greenwood. So he got that settlement, and he was a real estate guy. He was an entrepreneur. He was also a teacher.
Right.
So when you start doing the research and looking at what black people were doing, and his father was, I want to say he's product of a free slave. I want to say his dad may have been enslaved around that time. I don't like to call black people slaves. I just say enslaved. Yeah. His dad may have been enslaved. He's one of the characters that came around that time, and he bought up, I want to say 40 acres. Not bought up, but he settled on 40 acres of land around that time. And the other name was J.B., John the Baptist. Okay. J.B. stood for John the Baptist Stratford. He was a lawyer from Kentucky.
Okay, so maybe I had the name totally wrong. So was Stratford the one that wanted the black state? Who wanted the black state that did Langston?
Maybe.
I want to say it was the lawyer, so maybe Stratford.
He was a lawyer, and he built the biggest black hotel in the United States.
Okay.
I'm
going to go back and find.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up and add that to the notes, definitely.
Yeah, we'll add it in. But he teamed up with, because all of the names I kept seeing was J.B. Stratford and O.W. Gurley.
Okay, yeah.
And being able to have this land, and then that oil boom came a little later.
Yeah.
So, you got these two entrepreneurs that's there, and they formed a tag team, which showed that these two black guys were not thinking from a selfish standpoint.
Right, which not to segue, but like that's one of my biggest questions is, in my personal opinion, I feel like there are different groups who are trying to get to the end goal, right? But here, this one is going different route. This one over here don't have enough people to build the Segway. This one over here they're still talking about it. So no one actually gets to the goal. So and what's the? This
is how O.W. Gurley did it. That oil boom, Rob, that you talking about came in 1906. So Gurley bought those 40 acres, and he would only sell to black settlers. Similar to our boy Philip.
Yeah.
When he went to Harlem,
Yeah,
it's the same. It was similar. That similar
common
story.
thread.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, it's a Philip Payton GHH documentary coming this year.
Yeah, he sold to black sellers, and when Stratford came, that's when he started building his rental property.
Okay.
Around that same time, that's when he had the largest hotel. So the property lines for Gurley was the north side. He had a rooming house, 3 two-story buildings, 5 residences, 80 acres of farmland, and he founded a famous church, the Vernon AME Church. So guys out there cultivating the land.
Really,
Yeah.
and I want to just stop it right there on that point because that period, the 1910s to the 20s, there's a lot of economic areas thriving with black people.
Right.
And even the Tulsa, Oklahoma race riot. There was in 1919 alone, there was over 25 racial riots, and race riots being characterized as
the
white
Red
people.
Summer, the 1919.
Yeah, the red. White people coming into black. So a race riot is not counting us and just counting them coming in the black community. But what separated Greenwood and basically Tulsa, Oklahoma, in comparison to the other ones, was the level of home ownership.
Right.
So you had, and that really made me think a lot about the power of ownership, because for that to be the distinguishing feature of basically what was going on in a lot of other communities, it brought me back to thinking about, okay, I haven't always valued home ownership as a necessarily the wealth building vehicle, but when someone says that there were several thriving black communities, but what made this one different is home ownership, it made me really look at, okay, maybe I need to value that more in how I evaluate what makes a community thrive.
Right, and it's crazy that that's taking place in the 1919. You look 100 years plus later, and you're still having those same issues. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen on the news, but ABC 13 did a story on the deed restrictions and racial verbiage found in that. Also, then there was another, the Harris County Clerk Office came, and there's so much red tape when it comes to black people buying homes in certain areas. So, you think about redlining, you think about things that we're still dealing with 100 years later, and it's asinine. I mean, I can't even.
I mean, during this time, they basically gentrified what Gurley named the Greenwood district.
Right.
Black folks bought it, and like I said, Gurley and Stratford got together, and they subdivided and sold the land exclusively to black people. So one of the questions is black people, the attraction.
Right.
Is that if you can go there and buy some land, so black people coming from Mississippi, coming from some of those southern areas, but they were catching hell.
Yeah.
From Jim Crow and all the other things that were going on.
There was even some who came from the north.
Coming down.
Yeah,
saying,
coming
okay,
down.
so here we are. So now we started to get into another question I asked myself that I couldn't find in my research was, I'm big on infrastructure, and I was really trying to figure out, what type of black engineers or architects or contractors or people, like if you had roads, how was that being done?
Right.
Was that all exclusively black? Were they all just contracting, just black engineers, black builders, black architects to build this? Now I couldn't find that. Everything pointed to these specifically to these two guys, and it's another guy I wanna talk about a little later that goes into one of the characters. But just really thinking on that level of, how much of that was, because now when we started talking about what can we do in this day and age,
like what's the agenda? Like,
and
what's the
to
plan?
have that.
One plan and then
that's a good question too.
That's really a good question.
Yeah, my assumption would be they were black, but it would just be an assumption, because to your point, I didn't look at it from like who actually was building it. I would maybe ask you, as an architect, had architecture reached the level of advancement at that point in 1910s and 20s to where like we couldn't off of just sheer will build a building? Did that require that level of talent to do?
Definitely, because we had the Tuskegee Institute during the time of Booker
Yeah, I
T.
was gonna say,
Washington.
we
And he
were
was
building
training
buildings.
architects and engineers.
Yeah.
So they were building Tuskegee.
Yeah.
And a lot of that influence was coming into Tulsa, Oklahoma around this time when they started to flourish. And Booker T was one of the people that was credited with calling it, what did he call it?
Negro Wall Street.
Greenwood Negro Wall Street.
Yeah.
Prior to the name becoming Black Wall Street, it was Negro Greenwood.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
So-
like that better. I don't like
Yeah.
black in front of anything.
And I mean, they had a school that they built and called named it after Booker T. Washington.
Yeah,
Right.
actually, what is his last name? Basically the black guy who was on the elevator, which sparked up, the
Dick
whole-
Rowland.
Dick Rowland.
Yes.
He actually was a attendee. Wound up actually dropping out of Booker T. Washington High
wow,
School. So
wow.
that's
But yeah, those are just some of the things that kind of caught my attention in
And
in
them
looking
working
at
like them working
you
in
know.
the South, where the white neighborhood was, the South of Tulsa. Them working there, they had to come back and build their own. They couldn't do
Yeah.
anything there. When they say they couldn't even use the restroom, I literally almost lost it. Like, imagine having
Yeah.
to hold. They couldn't even use the restroom.
Yeah, we
there.
take a lot of stuff for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
That
so
wasn't-
not only you're thinking like, okay, it was segregated. No, back in 1909, you're talking about they can't even use the restroom. So they had to literally, 1905, like going back 1904, 03, 02, they had to literally build everything themselves. So that is just wild to
Right.
imagine, like, not only it wasn't glamorized like
Yeah.
like a lot of us
It's-
glamorize
it's
it, like,
self-determination.
oh, they were so rich, right?
Yeah.
And out of need.
But
there was a need.
That's what we were talking about offline before the show, though. I'm beginning to wonder and really starting to develop a hypothesis as to, like, has there been a greater trigger for black economic empowerment than segregation and Jim Crow? Because it seems like every time the option has been taken away from us to participate, that's when we've built, and that's when we've created, and that's when we've really dug in and really come up with some brilliant foundations. And I'm not saying that Jim Crow, like, I'm not thanking it or anything like that, but just if we just look at it, objectively, it starts to paint a picture of, hey, when we're segregated or left alone, as Frederick Douglass put it, we seem to thrive a lot better than when we attempt to integrate into other societies. And
$1 billion question
Yeah,
mark.
but history has been proven that.
yeah, and I think, but for some reason, more so than any other race, it seems like we have evolved to almost validate our success. And this maybe goes back to Martin in his own words, self stated as being a naive phase of his, us maybe yearning for full citizenship during a civil rights era, and maybe that full citizenship meaning that we can go anywhere. But when you look at other ethnicities, I don't believe that, like, Chinatown necessarily aspires to be on somewhere outside of Chinatown. It's enough for Chinatown to be Chinatown, and I think for whatever reason with us, maybe from integration on, it's not enough sometimes for us to be, Black Town or,
Because we built this land.
yeah. I mean, by all means.
Why have us in this 35 block radius? And I'm not saying that that's my take on it. I'm saying that's how some people think about it. Why keep me in a state of 50 states?
Well-
We built this land. Our ancestors bled on this soil.
Well, I guess my only, I'm not disputing what you're saying, but I guess my response to that would be, we've thrived when we've been in those 35-acre portions. So if we were just looking at what has worked, maybe there's something to that, because I guess just asking more philosophically than like a position on it, but what's wrong with a 35-acre area if that area is our utopian existence where we're actually able to thrive? I mean, I would rather have a 35-acre area that was doing that than, have full access to, a metropolitan area where, I'm basically not treated in the same way.
And I totally
I think
understand.
the question that comes up is how do you protect it?
Right.
And that's where it kind of ties into Black Wall Street. What we commonly know as Black Wall Street is that, yeah, that's happened, but every time we've had it, it's been terrorized.
Right. And you're like
So-
literally 2 years afterwards. I mean, you had literally 2 years afterwards. You had Rosewood, Florida, which was told to us was, oh, that's a fictional movie. No. And the same common thread, you know, a black guy allegedly assaulted a white woman, and then we're just going to kill hundreds of black people and burn down their city, you know. So
because even the tie-ins with the Native Americans and how they imposed those appropriation acts to take their land,
right,
from and then start subdividing all of that. So every time it's been this segregated area, it's how do you protect it?
Right. That's a good question.
You know, it's not about disagreeing. It's just about, I would love to. Hey, it's us, and we got a block radius of all of us together. But how do we protect it once it starts thriving? Because history has shown us, whether it's the MOVE organization in Philadelphia or wherever, whenever we have a concentrated effort, something comes in from the outside to attack it.
And by the way, I don't want you to think that I was disagreeing.
No, I don't want you to think. But likewise,
because I did come in like boom.
But I brought that up to say this. One thing I did admire that I think gets untold a lot of times when we talk about Greenwood is that those black people was about it.
Yeah.
They didn't just let somebody come in. See, the story is like, oh, it was the race riots and all of that. But they gunned up.
Okay.
You know, they gunned up.
To that point, though, because I'm glad you said that.
They gunned up.
Because
they didn't just, I'm going to move out the way. Yes, boss, you can take my land. No, it didn't go down like that.
They gunned up. And, you know, I have, you know, I got some brothers offline. We always have this debate about, you know, King and the nonviolence. And, you know, a lot of people feel, a growing legion of people feel like that was totally the wrong strategy. And they felt like, man, we should have fought back. Now, Tulsa, Oklahoma, we gunned up, we fought back, and what was the end result, you know, of that? I mean, we went out fighting, but we still went out. You know, everything was burned down. So
I got it in my notes. Segregation and Jim Crow helped it thrive because of the inability of blacks to participate in a larger white economy. So
there we go. Hey, great minds.
But now, on that question, let me give you a little. So with the history of that, the young guy on the elevator. So the whole thing starting off with him being on the elevator with this white girl that was, I guess, the elevator operator. He was like a shoe shine guy or something, as the story is told. And these are teens.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He gets accused of harassing her or something with no proof. Yeah. They take him down to the courthouse. Black folks march down to their courthouse too to protect their brother. Mm-hmm. Not just, oh man, they marching down there with no guns, with mobs. You asking to be, you know, hey, it's like,
they
hey,
let the chopper sing. They did.
Yeah,
they let the chopper sing.
It was there in another character, a guy by the name of AJ Smitherman. He founded the Tulsa Star, which was a newspaper. The newspaper has always been critical in segments of highly populated black areas. Now that I'm noticing from history, the newspaper has always been critical because it's propaganda. He was able to promote a lot of the stuff that was going on to help people and enforcing self-defense. It was a black newspaper, so he talked about the legal rights and called black men who served in World War I to take up arms. He was using that newspaper as kind of propaganda. Mm-hmm. So the fighting back part is that if your son, this is take it here. You have a son, Robert Mayberry, what would he be? The fifth. And he comes home and he's like, man, they picking on me, man. They just use me as a punching bag. What you gonna tell him? You ain't gonna tell him to hit back, fight back?
I'm showing up. I ain't gonna tell him. I'm pulling up.
I mean, but for black people during that time, and I get what you're saying. You know, people criticize the nonviolent movement,
right.
But at a certain time, these people are saying, "Hey, we have to fight back because if not, they're gonna roll over us. If they're gonna do it anyway, I want the story to be told that I went out fighting."
Right.
I feel that. I receive that.
So a young black kid see that and say, "Hey, these people defended their territory. Somebody come in my house or your house, anybody's house, we got the right to shoot back."
No, I receive that. I guess the only thing I was looking at was it being a case study of when we do pick up arms, what the result was, because I feel like some people
No, I
maybe
get what you're
presented,
saying. I get
you know,
what you're saying. And the crazy thing about it was just too many of them. You got to understand.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
moms.
just the southern. It wasn't just the southern.
Yeah, the
white parts.
KKK was growing out there.
They came, and again, the way he talked about the press being used, and shout out to the NMPA. All right, the way he talked about the press, black press, for you guys out there that didn't know. The way he talked about the press being used, they also had their own press, and they used their press too for propaganda.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was cut out of their magazine was the call for lynchings. And so when you do that call for lynchings, remember they're calling surrounding areas too. So they overtook you. It was what, I don't know if this is in your notes or your notes, Robert, but I believe it was 11,000. That was the population of Greenwood. Right?
yeah, that was
around
11,000.
Yeah.
So you're talking about them swarming, and then that's including children, women and children. They swarmed. So even though we fought back, it just simply wasn't enough of us. It was a numbers game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no,
we fought. I want the story.
But I
for
get what
kids.
you're saying.
I want them
because
to
a
know
lot
that
of
we
people-
fought back.
Right, because then you have these shirts, right, that says "I'm not my ancestors."
Oh,
don't
man.
don't disrespect
Yeah,
your
that's- yeah,
ancestors.
yeah. We
But
had an
what do you
episode
mean?
about that. Yeah, we had an episode. 'Cause
Exactly.
If you
I
really
watched
knew
that
who your
episode.
if you really knew
Right.
who your ancestors were, you
Right.
would know you got a long way to go.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but just to touch on that before we hop over to something else, the idea for the following the story or whatever, he's going to court. These people are like, hey, we need to mob up in case they try to do something to this young
Right,
brother.
right.
So they're standing outside of the courthouse, and no charges were even filed.
Yeah, that's
Against
crazy.
him.
And the white woman on the elevator never pressed a
Yeah,
charge.
she never pressed a charge, but I want to say they kept him, and things got a little heated after that incident.
Yeah, they let the chopper sing. Like
And then it started.
someone set off a shot. We don't know from what side, but
Yes, a lot of allegations.
right, there's a lot of allegations,
Yeah.
but we know that black people shot back.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one allegation, one thing that I wasn't able to find like a concrete definitive of what happened. So most of the time, the story told about Tulsa and the Black Wall Street is that it was bombed. Now, from what I was researching, what I was found was some people said there was fires and there was, in the words of the great Biggie, I told Ron to pass the gasoline, he passed me kerosene. Some people say that they poured kerosene on the fire. Some people said gasoline was thrown on the fire. Some people say there was an actual bombs drop. But I wasn't able. I was just really asking if you were.
It
able
was supposed to
find-
be like some. From what I understand, there was some bombs dropped from the sky.
Okay.
Now, was
So,
it
yeah.
bombs or was it like crop dusting planes? dropping
Yeah, not
kerosene?
necessarily like
Yeah.
Hiroshima.
But yeah,
like,
right. And
in
I
that
think
sense of
that
a
I think
bomb.
that's what I found too, is that they like how the crop dusting planes, like they dropped like kerosene or whatever that kind of ignited the fires. Because if you talk to some of these people, and again, these kids are so young. 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds talking about being under their bed, their mom hiding them, because they took all the men and took them to the park where they detained them. Remember, like they took all of the men and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna round you up and we're gonna take you to actual where they hold the
internment camps?
detainees, right? Internment camps.
Yeah,
which was at this
they
park.
did. Yeah, they did.
Right,
They
and
did.
so the mom, like some of their moms were like, okay, well, you get under the bed, and some of these accounts from these 5 and 6-year-old kids are saying that they're seeing them walk in with torches lighting their curtains,
Yeah.
so the house can be lit on fire.
I saw that
Yeah,
too.
so
a
it's
good
like-
a good depiction of that in pop culture was the series Lovecraft. I think it's Lovecraft Country.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
okay.
like that.
The-
They had an
it's-
episode that kind of tied into what happened around Greenwood and Tulsa, Oklahoma, the massacre, race riots, whatever you want to call it. And I want to say another one in pop culture was The Watchmen.
Right, yeah, the Watchmen they
depicted,
touched on it heavy.
But
yeah.
just the idea of us being armed and ready and fighting back, not just having our town and being disillusioned that at any given moment these people can come.
And I think as black culture, period, black people in black culture, we always had a divide. And then there are times like Greenwood where we banded together, and many others. But I feel like before anyone decides whether to take up arms or not, we have to come together as a people and have a real agenda that can be executed against.
Yeah, I think the thing with them, what brought them together agenda-wise was what was going on from the outside.
Right.
And needing that refuge.
And needing it, right? A need. It was
Yeah.
such a need. It was such a great need. That's really good.
Because it was more in your face at that time.
Right.
Now it's not as
It's like we have nowhere to hang out.
well. It's not as in your face. We're
Right.
not living in Jim Crow.
Yeah.
It's more of a psychological thing now. It is somewhat in your face, but not as much of how it was in your
And
face.
I
I mean,
get
they
what
had
you're saying, yeah.
postcards.
Yeah, right. I get
They,
what
yeah,
you're
saying.
souvenirs for the acts. And I thought, just on the topic of interesting facts, I thought one of the things that was slightly humorous to me was the fact that, like, when Tulsa, Oklahoma was damaged and, and the black men in that workforce was taken out, that actual Tulsa's economy suffered because now those black people who were doing those, quote unquote, menial tasks were gone. So, there's this strange relationship that black and white Americans have where it's like we have this strange connection to each other.
And
Like
they need
they as much as they've hated us, they've never wanted us to leave. So
I want to make a tie-in and then talk about the future.
Okay.
Let's talk about the money then, and then we'll bring it into the future of how we connect the economy to a future Black Wall Street, right? Mm-hmm. With that, and talking about the money and all of the businesses that they had around that time, these guys, now, we do the inflation on it. A guy like J.B. Stratford, he was a millionaire for that time.
Right.
If you're looking at inflation, 500,000 at that time, that's equates to millions here.
Right.
The same with O.W. Gurley. So when they burned that down, these guys had to rebuild. They moved.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they lost it all. A lot of these elite black people that had these businesses, they lost it all. That thriving economy where the dollar may have circulated 36 times
Right.
before it left the community. The economy was thriving at that time. So now it's burned, it's gone. Now what do you do? So a lot of these guys that was making all their money, O.W. Gurley, he goes to California. He has to rebuild. You got to start over.
Yeah.
They were like you said, they were literally living in tents after everything was burned down. They had tents, just like how we have Tent City around under the freeway. Sometimes here in Houston, you ride by, they had big tents.
Red
So
Cross
imagine
came.
building your economic empire.
That's
That money
true.
circulating. You got all these businesses, and one of the things is that economy, man. That economy burns. Not only did that house burn, that thriving economy burned down. The J.B. Stratford, he's a lawyer. He ended up having to go, I want to say, to Chicago, trying to start over, getting back into law. But they never regained what they had.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same lawyer. I just I don't know why I blundered, didn't write his name down. But there was a lawyer after the land was burned down. They tried to use a fire ordinance to basically take the land, and there was a lawyer who was operating out of a tent that basically fought that and stopped the land being able to be taken. We'll have to put that in the notes. I don't know if it's the same lawyer that you speak of.
Like, did he wait before he went to Chicago? I actually don't know that lawyer's name.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
not sure.
this was after
They had a lot of lawyers that
But
were
I
there.
kind of remember this story.
And yeah, I'll get his I'll get his name. But one thing I did want to touch on just quickly with the money is the fact that, like, it seems like there were times in our history where there were basically economic bases where you could go and show up, and if you were willing to work, receive a certain level of financial, be able to make an honest living and pay for food, housing, shelter. Even like during the time of Dick, tell me his last name one more time.
Stratford, J.B. Stratford, the lawyer.
No, the kid who was on the elevator.
Dick.
Yeah, Dick.
Yeah.
We'll just call him. I think
Roland.
it was Roland. Yeah, Dick
Dick
Roland.
Roland.
He was a bootback, which at that time, a bootback, just shining shoes of an oilman, on average, you would be looking at a tip of $1 to $5, which in today's money, that's $13 to $60. So you shined five shoes a day, you were making like a good living, which is why, like, there was a a lot of kids in high school chose to work instead of just finish high school because there was an economic base. Even if we go fast forward all the way to the automobile industry, where all you had to do was show up to Detroit, and if you were willing to work, you could have a job at a plant where you had a salary that could afford a house and those type of things. I wonder, like, where in modern times, will we ever have that again, where an industry or a base where you can show up as a black person just willing to work and be able to make an honest living? The only thing I maybe could think of is Texas. If you get in with the right person, maybe you can get on an oil rig or something like that. But just that's powerful that we had that at the time. I know the auto industry isn't necessarily our creation, but we have, we had those bases where we could go and basically you didn't have to be a coder or architect or whatever to make an honest living.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just out of curiosity, and maybe it's kind of just leads into what you were discussing, but do y'all see us, or do we have industries today that could potentially be that type of base where it's our thing, where if you show up and you're willing to work, you can make a decent living, put a kid through school?
Well, I want to say that it kind of goes back to what Eric was saying when he talked about how it's not so in your face. So, and I think that's what the organizations are doing now. So, no, at the first, not saying no, but like there was work that needed to be done to put black people, right, diversity, black people in those type of management positions where they're able to hire young black people. And that was the reason why all of these companies put a black square on their Instagram, right? Because they wanted to show that we're taking efforts and making efforts to diversify our leadership. But we want
diversity and inclusion.
Right, diversity and inclusion. I'm literally about to say, oh my goodness, if I hear that again.
That's the buzzword for corporate America.
That is the buzzword. But that is the thing. And you literally, it's literally every single aspect. From a TV show, you can see and tell, okay, they don't have black writers because we don't do that. You know what I mean?
We need to get in on some of that diversity and inclusion.
But they start going. But they start going out of their way. But they start going out of their way, and
to say what they're promoting.
Not to veer off too much, but it was almost like trying so hard, like, oh, we gonna give y'all a black Superman,
Yeah, it was like
it just became
wild.
Diversity and inclusion.
And we're like literally saying, just put us in management positions to where we are able to hire and get paid what we're supposed to get paid. And that goes into Pandora's box, because then you start looking at wage gaps between men and women, and it's crazy.
Yeah, more symbolism. That's we always talk about symbolic victory.
Small.
Yes.
But I do want to give a shout out to to the Gap Band, Greenwood, Archer and Pine. From Tulsa, Oklahoma. Charlie Wilson and them.
Right.
They made the song "You Dropped the Bomb on Me."
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people got the bomb. But that was.
Wow, I didn't see it. I didn't know that.
But the song "You Dropped the Bomb on Me."
So that's what
baby.
that.
It's
EQ with the etymology work.
You're learning things here, okay? You guys should be tuned in, all right?
But that's the Gap Band, Greenwood, Archer and Pine.
Those
were some of the boundaries of the land. Like you had I want to say Greenwood on the north, and then the northeast, and then the south. So you had Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. So that's what the Gap Band.
Not the Gap Band teaching us through song.
Yeah, they were.
That's what they were doing.
Look at that.
But I want to take it to the now, because we're talking about economics, and we're coming up on the Centennial of Black Wall Street. And I know something that's close to you that you're associated with is how do we take the spirit of Black Wall Street, that 1921 time, and put this into 2021, 100 years later?
Right. Well, that is a really great question. And the crazy thing about it is, out of the blue, I was contacted by Hill Harper. If you don't know Hill Harper, he was in Skulls. He's an actor. He's a philanthropist. He's all about black education. And so what he is doing with his actual partner named Naja Roberts, they actually are going to open on the 100-year anniversary the first black digital wallet. And it is called The Black Wall Street. You go to theblackwallstreet.com. I know there's a lot of the Black Wall Streets out there, But on Instagram, it's at Black Cash Matters, so you'll be able to follow them and see everything that they're doing. I am not associated with Hill Harper. Let me say that. I was literally called on to be a city ally for his tour. So he has a financial revolution literacy tour where he is going around and he is teaching people in Black communities in a lot of different states about digital, the digital cryptocurrency world. And so he's kind of giving them a really tad bit of knowledge, because it could be information overload when you're talking about cryptocurrency.
What did you tell us offline? You said the Black Wall Street that can't be burned down?
Yes. So when I interviewed Naja Roberts, she said that was his major thing, is that they cannot burn this down, and that financial literacy is the key to pulling, the Black community out of systemic racism and out of this, this hold that they have. And so I'm like, well, how are you gonna do that? Because
because Black people in the hood, you start saying cryptocurrency, they're like what? I need to see my money, man.
And right now,
we got black market workers, man.
Right, exactly. I don't have money to put into something and wait on it. You want me to wait for money? No, I don't need to wait. So it's very interesting, and they're even teaching kids about cryptocurrency.
That's where it should
start. Don't know, right?
Definitely. That's where it has to start.
Kids. So many people got student loans and things of that sort. Like he literally that revolutionary tour, and like I said, when they came here in Houston, I don't know if you guys were able to come out. It was really quick. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was so quick.
I don't know how they advertise it, because I missed it.
Yeah, it was so quick that they came out. But there were some people there, and they got a lot of great knowledge on buying Bitcoin, and there's so many coins out there, over 9,000 coins, but they talked about that.
Let me ask you this too. You said the digital, like, what is the importance of the digital wallet, in this, as far as in investing in cryptocurrency and financial literacy?
So the digital wallet, that's the crazy thing about it. Learning about crypto, you don't have ownership of your coin unless it's in a wallet. So this is the first Black-owned digital wallet where it's Hill Harper and Naja Roberts. They're together. They own this digital wallet. They're asking you to put your coins in this wallet. And the reason why the wallet is important, because when you have your wallet for your cryptocurrency, there's things called like keys, like passwords. If you lose that, you lose your money.
Whoa.
So a lot of people just really don't understand.
So it's not like my bank account. I can reset
you can't
my
just
password.
Like pull it out. Right. You
Can't
have to have that. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't reset it. So it's like a lot of people don't know how it works. Like, do I just buy the coin online and then I just pull my money out? No, it doesn't work like that. Like, it has to go through a wallet and all kind of other stuff, depending on the type of coin that you buy. And so that's what they're doing. They're actually, not only are they having this wallet, but they're teaching you how to establish or gain financial freedom through cryptocurrency.
That's a great point that you bring up too, because I think in the charge for generational wealth, and sometimes it happens in the fact that we have the spirit of wanting to achieve things, but sometimes our spirit isn't necessarily in alignment with like the data and the research. Like one of the big things, which I don't. I'm not the person who's gonna be the parent telling kids Santa Claus doesn't exist. Now my kid might know something different, but like people yell entrepreneurship, generational wealth. Well, the numbers are very clear. Entrepreneurship isn't what sparks generational wealth. Investment is what sparks generational wealth. Like if you have a much higher return on investment and likelihood of success if you didn't even start a business but said, hey, 10% of all my income that I get, I'm going to put into the market, I'm going to invest with this strategy. That method is undefeated, but it's not sexy. And sometimes we like these sexy ideas. I'm going to start this business, and 25 people liked when I got the job, but only 2 liked when I started the business. And you want
to wear it on a shirt.
But I think like getting to some applicable stuff.
A lot of people, when they think about like financial freedom and wealth, right, building wealth and investing, they're saying to themselves, well, if I put in $20 and I buy and Bitcoin is one coin is worth $55,000. what is my $20 doing?
Yeah.
What was
So
a fractional
they're not-
purchase?
Right, and but to them, they're thinking to themselves like, what? Why am I putting $20 into something for me to get back a penny?
It's a
return?
learning curve.
Right, exactly. There is a huge learning curve, and so when she talked about buying a satoshis and investing a satoshis and those kind of things, like terms that you're like, well, wait a minute, let me go Google that, because like,
Yeah, I need
don't
to
know.
hit me to
You
the
know what I
game.
mean? I'm
I
like,
don't know
well, what
Satoshis
is the
is.
satoshis? You know, and she talks about breaking that down. And she talks about even the difference between Dogecoin, which I was calling Dodge for a long time. I still
I was
don't
today
know
years
what
old
the
when I
fuck-
learned that wasn't the name.
I was like 2 weeks years old, so trust me, I'm with you on that. But like, and I'm still learning cryptocurrency, right? But the thing about it, the thing that they want you to do is, we have to start somewhere. So maybe you're saying to yourself, well, I only have $20 to throw at cryptocurrency. Okay, well, throw it. And then throw 20 more, and then throw 20 more. And it's like you have to start somewhere, even if it's just starting a business or not. You start somewhere with everything you do.
I think right now we're at a point in time, like in a lot of like the hip hop or like just the culture movies this generation, it's kind of the mythical year a lot of times for like quote unquote street hustlers is 88. And
Right.
88 was the time when everybody was getting money. Well, from a stock point right now where we're at in the market, we're actually living in 88 to the point where I do this experiment with a lot of friends of mine where I'll tell them, just you pick 3 stocks that just make sense off the top of your head. Like if you just had to invest,
Right.
you know, pick 3. And without fail, every single one that they pick, I'll do the year to date, and without fail, each one will be up 50 to 200% on the year. You don't even have to be, obviously, you know, research your purchase.
I mean, everything's gonna be hard, guys. Greenwood was hard. Building it was hard.
Yeah.
Like everything is hard. Building a business is hard. Working a job is hard. Everything is hard.
One thing I would
Everything
say
is work. Yeah.
to get on that, and then I want to wrap this segment up, and then the vision.
Yeah.
You're we talked about all these different acts in this year 1889, and this man coming from Arkansas, another man coming from Kentucky, and all they see is land.
Right.
Your vision is land, and then something had to click in your head as a black man at that time. I see buildings, I see people living here. So these two people had to have a vision. It's just land. A lot of times, you know, we go places and we see land and we don't, you know, what's the vision? All right, all of us are gonna get together. What's the vision behind it?
Right.
To build this new Black Wall Street of the
Right.
now. So take that vision from land to the digital world. What does that vision look like?
Right.
People coming together and having a certain vision that it may not be there, it's just in your mind, and then you start manifesting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it takes, and you have to say no. And it's I'm not gonna lie, it's a challenge to say no to today benefit. You know, like, and you know, one of the things that, like I'm going through in the business right now is the fact that, hey, my cousin came with a suggestion. If we just reinvested everything, then you know, we could have a real economic base. But I'm like, man, reinvest everything, man. I like taking these. I like getting $200-300 Monday, then $400 Wednesday, but it's a sacrifice, and it has there's no, you know, you can't join a fraternity without pledging. You know, so
you said something earlier, Robert, and it was very key, and it literally ties into everything we've been talking about today. And you said ownership, and you literally just said it. What is the vision? Who owns the coins? Like, have you thought about that? Who owns Ethereum? Who owns Bitcoin? Like, who ownership, right? Who owns these things?
I created Bitcoin.
Right.
Because it started as a vision in somebody's mind.
In somebody's
Yeah.
mind, and that it's ownership, and like the podcast, like you guys own this, like this is going somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I would love, if you don't mind, for me to,
You know what I wanted to do? Almost break. I mean, I had this idea while we on here, and I know we still taping, to chop the brick up and say, okay, we gonna end this, and then we gonna come back with the interview, and that's a whole nother segment.
right?
So, you know, this is on the Black Wall Street. On shout out that website again.
It's theblackwallstreet.com.
theblackwallstreet.com.
Right, and if you go to Instagram, it's at Black Cash Matters, and it's created by Hill Harper and his partner Naja Roberts.
Got it.
Brilliant.
So we appreciate you coming in and sitting in as a guest right now.
Yeah.
As you're a guest, you're not at work, but now you're gonna put on your other hat
am.
in a little bit. You're
Right.
gonna put on your other hat, and then you're gonna interview us, and then that'll be
Yes.
a whole nother segment.
Yes.
That way, people get
They
they
kinda
get this
like-
side of you,
Re-rocking.
then they get the other
Then they
side
get
of
Totally
you.
Randie.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, I want
Rocking
to.
with Randy.
So to the people out there, because we're gonna close out this segment.
Okay.
Just whatever you want to tell them.
Definitely financial literacy. Look into every type of scholarship before you think about a loan. When it comes to going to school. Also, stop pushing people to go to school that's not ready for school. Like, we need to build and inculcate our own talents in each other. So when we're thinking about Black Wall Street and what they did in the past in 1921, and here we are in 2021, not only just building financial literacy through cryptocurrency, but also building financial literacy, period, for our community. And I really appreciate what these guys are doing, because a lot of the history that they spew out is not taught in schools. It's sometimes I'm learning, and I'm in my 30s. So the fact that I am still learning about our history, and these guys are doing the research and pulling it up, like, this is huge, And if this is your first time watching, definitely stay tuned, because they're on fire.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button, man. I'm EQ.
Hey, Rob J10X.
Hey, this is Gentleman's History Hour. If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.